Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone attending the Planning Committee meeting today, especially those in the public gallery and anyone watching the meeting via the webcast. To the members of public in the gallery, I would like to remind you that this planning meeting is being broadcast live over the internet, so there is no need for any other filming of the meeting to take place. This meeting is available to view online now and in the future. Committee members, please be aware that we are all on camera and you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking. And please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings. I have had no request for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Please can all mobile phones and other noisy devices be put on silent. If there is an emergency alarm, please follow the green signs and go to the ground floor of the Civic car park. Thank you. I'm going to ask the officers now to introduce themselves, starting on my far right, please.
Good afternoon, members. I'm Polly Ellis from the Council's Legal Section.
Rachel Beale from Democratic Services.
Richard Lewis, Head of Planning. Paul Wheeldon from Highway Development.
Rebecca McAndrew, Principal Planner.
Norman Jones, Team Leader Planning.
Thank you for that. Right, we go to the agenda. Item 1, attendance and apologies. Are there any apologies, Rachel?
I've received apologies from Councillor Ron Burnett, Veronica Quick and Faye Jones.
Are there any other apologies members know about? No? Thank you. Declarations of interest next. Polly, can I ask you to do the declarations? Thank you.
Chair, there are no declarations that I'm aware of this afternoon.
Thank you. Item 3, minutes of a planning committee meeting held on the 16th of July. Do you all agree it's a true record? Right, thank you. Are there any questions or comments on these minutes? No? Thank you. Right, item 4. Is planning appeal, an application 18/P/0474 FUL, and it was change of use from building in A2 use, estate agents to dog groomers, cited at 18 Chapel Street, Pontnewydd, and this appeal was dismissed. Are there any questions, comments from members? Yes, Stuart?
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to make these comments, but I will do. The problem we had round there was if you go around the back of Harold Street, there's some tremendous car parking problems. In some ways, I'm somewhat relieved that this happened. I'll just make that comment and leave it like that. Thank you.
Okay. Right, this appeal was dismissed.
I appreciate that. Could I move that we strongly noted?
Oh, well, we can only note these. Okay, Stuart. Thank you. Right, we'll go on to item 5, which is another planning appeal, and it's application number 18/P/0763 FUL, and it was proposed new 3-bedroom dwelling and associated access and car park, cited at Linwood Station Road, Pontyr, and this application was dismissed, as you can see. Any comments or anything on this one? We agree to note it, committee. Thank you. Item 6. This appeal is 18/P/0842 FUL, conversion of existing ground floor restaurant to 3 self-contained flats, cited at Ashley's at the Forge Restaurant, High Street, Pontypool, and this appeal was allowed. Any comments from members? No? We all agree to note it? Thank you. We go to item 7, which is application number 18/P/0798 FUL, proposal is construction of 143 dwellings with drainage, car parking, open space, landscaping, access and associated works sited at the former County Hall, Cross y Ceiliog, Cwmbran, and the ward is Llanarafon West. We had a site inspection panel on the 4th of July on this one, and Rebecca McAndrew will present this application. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Chair. So the application is regarding the former County Hall site in Cwmbran. Just a couple of amendments to the officer report, the committee report that you've had. First of all, on page 43, it states that 19 neighbour letters were sent out. That's incorrect. Instead, in this instance, we put 5 notices up within the area in those places outlined on the slide, and a press notice went into the Free Press in December as well. Then on page 49, where it lists the developer contributions at the bottom of the page, it says that the school education requirement is 351,900. It should actually read 316,200. So moving on to the proposed development, as I said, it's the former County Hall site. It's an allocated site within the LDP. It forms part of a wider allocation which includes the police headquarters, which is next door. The overall allocation is for 220 dwellings. The current application is for 143 dwellings. The scheme will include 14 one-bed units, 41 two-bed units, 58 three-bed units and 34 bed units. Here's the site layout, so I'll talk you through the scheme. The proposed access is off the old County Hall roundabout on Turnpike Road, so up here into the site. You'll see that most of the woodland around the site would be retained, and trees in the green areas around the site. There's a lap and a leap children's play area within this central public open space area. Up here is the Bat House, which was built as part of the demolition of the County Hall, and that would be retained within the site, and our ecologist is happy with the relationship between the proposed dwellings and that facility. There's an existing public right-of-way which runs through the site. You can see it here marked in purple. As part of the proposal, that would be encapsulated into the development. So you'd have the footway and the public right-of-way running in tandem down through the site. In conjunction with that, there's a green route through this green finger down through the southern part of the site, so there'd be a footpath through the woodlands as well, which locals could use. Note this bit down here is allowing access in the future onto the police headquarters site if required when that site comes forward, if it does full development. The scheme also proposes to install a footway across the front of the site towards the Police HQ site, and also a pedestrian crossing on Turnpike Road. The public open space and the woodland on the site would be managed by a management company, which would be secured by the Section 106. The Section 106 proposals include 30% affordable housing, £7,697 towards play areas above what is being provided on site, £162,440 for adult recreation, and then, as I said earlier, about the £316,200 towards primary school education. In the report, it actually refers to a £15,000 contribution towards off-site pedestrian works, but Paul's actually clarified that he would prefer to have the developer undertake those works rather than accept a contribution in that instance. So if I just talk you through here. So here's an example of the sort of house that you'd see on the site. This is one of the elevations submitted. And then we've just got some computer-generated images here from the developer to show the sort of scheme that we'll be looking at. And then some photos of the existing site. So this is looking from what would have been the bottom car park that the police use now, looking up through to the ancient woodlands at the top, the dual carriageway behind that. This is the access route, the old access route up into County Hall. So that's where the access would be reconstructed up there, with the woodland retained to the left. And then that's probably a better view with the access off the roundabout up into the site. And the houses would be located beyond that. So the recommendations for approval subject to section 106. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Are there any questions? Jason?
Thank you. My first question is on, have we looked at the impact on the drainage system in terms of not just this site, but its impact to the overall system in Cwmbran? And is there any risk of overloading that system with these additional properties? Sewerage and drainage.
Yeah, the Drainage Office has gone back and forth quite a bit on the drainage strategy for this. So we've got a strategy, and then we've got a condition then that would require the detail, but he's happy with the strategy. They've been doing quite a lot of additional work looking at the infrastructure within the area and how that would cope. So, yeah, he's satisfied that an acceptable detailed scheme can come forward.
Can you just comment as well on the sewerage side of it as well?
Yeah, that's
the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay then, Jason? You okay with that? Right, Stuart, and then Louise.
I don't intend to go on too much on this, but there are a couple of things that in the site visit I need to be satisfied that they are looked after as it was. One was the streamway that went down one side of the site. Remember rightly, it's on the left hand if you go up. That's number one. Number two were all the trees on the site, and I'm not sure whether there's TPOs on there, but we've got experience with other developers playing around with trees and headlines, and the other aspect of that being on the top part of the site. I know it's mentioned in here about noise abatement with the tree line. There's some mention in here, and the other bit I've got in here is about footpaths across the site. The next footpath, obviously, there's a conversation about the line of footpaths, canalisation in the development. We've had this elsewhere in Cwmbran, where footpaths to be meaningful and to be useful have to work. And that's something, there's quite a lot in here about footpaths, and we had the same problem with South Sebastopol, where these footpaths would be workable. Bear in mind that this site is on the route to the new hospital and forms part of that kind of route as well. And then the other part, my old favourite, is cycleways, commute routes, etc. This thing does link into the one. That was a conversation we had when we were on site, how this links in with that. So I've got 4 there. Sorry about this, Rebecca, but you know, how we're linking in. I mean, there's quite a lot in here on this, but there's a lot of houses, a lot of linkage, and sort of, and my other one I forgot about, which was the other conversation we had about the bus route. There are bus routes here, and it does, if you walk down, it will link in with the school and across the kilo number 2 and number 3, but that's the other bit, because obviously you've got the brand new hospital around, and I suspect some of the people that want to buy these houses will be people that want to work up there. But linkage is going to be quite an important thing for this site. I just wondered how that all equates.
I'll go through each of those crews here. So I assume you're talking about the stream here that runs through the woodlands? Yeah. I mean, there's no plans for that within the overall development to be altered. We'd see it as something that was managed as part of that management company. They'll put forward a strategy of how to manage that ancient woodland and the stream within it. So we're satisfied with that. Yeah, you bring up the public right of way, and we haven't been that happy with the approach that's been taken. It isn't ideal to have a public right-of-way running next to a footpath, but we have to look at the scheme in front of us and make a decision on whether on balance that's acceptable, and it probably is, meets the requirement. On top of that, we've got the sort of a more attractive footpath, which hasn't got that legal public right-of-way status, but it would be down through the green space and the woodland. So on balance, we think that approach is probably okay. Obviously, in terms of footpath links, we were talking about that footpath across the front of the site. The crossing here, and that would be for bikes as well, so two can cross with bikes and pedestrians. Paul may want to say more about the bikes and pedestrians.
Highways Officer will come in now, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. From Turnpike roundabout along the frontage of the site there going south, that's been improved to a footway cycleway. That then crosses at Turnpike roundabout and takes you down the path down the back of the property's shared cycleway footway. That then links into the subway that takes you under the A4042, and that side then is being improved by the hospital. So the hospital are paying for improvements of the links on street down to the subway, and then the existing path is as is, the cycleway footway, and then there's improvements all along the frontage of this site, which will be part of which was in the original development brief and will be part of the Section 106 agreement. So, yeah, there will be some improvements to footway cycleways to get you to the underpass that then takes you up to the hospital. There are existing bus stop locations along the frontage of this site. There was, Rebecca mentioned the crossing point to the north of the roundabout. That actually links then into the path that takes you into the sixth form and the school. Thank you.
Right.
And trees.
That's that. There'll be a condition to require the trees to be properly protected during development as ancient woodland, and we've fought quite strongly to make sure that the scheme wouldn't impact upon the trees during development, and any trees that aren't protected we'd be looking to protect before we handed the site over to the new purchaser or the new owner.
Does that include our old favourite maintenance of the trees and fauna on that site? Because, I mean, it's had about 8 years, and there's quite a lot of stuff. Would we actually get an ecologist report back what's on there at the moment?
We've had a tree report already, so if I just talk you through, so this woodland here would be staying, the boundary around the edge of the site, this bit here is particularly important, we think. Some of the larger trees within the site as well would be retained, and there's woodland down here, and there's a large tree there as well. So the retention of trees and protecting our woodland has been quite a key consideration in our discussions and negotiations. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Stuart. Right, we have Louise next on the list.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back on what Jason brought up, really, the drainage officer says, I've assessed the drainage strategy and design for the former county hall. Whilst I am disappointed that the developer has not taken up the challenge of attempting to satisfy the Welsh Government non-statutory guidance for surface water design. There's previously been flooding in the homes just below the site, so is this not an opportunity that we should be making the developer upgrade our water system?
Yeah. The application was submitted before it became a requirement, so it's difficult. We can encourage, but we can't insist on that, which is unfortunate, but that's where we are. The drainage officer's happy that the strategy put forward would adequately deal with the surface water drainage and wouldn't cause flooding, but obviously the SUD's approach would always be a preferable approach from us, but this was submitted before the legislation was brought in, so we can't insist upon it.
Right, Louise. Right, Steve next.
My question is, what are we doing, because it's such a big development, my concern is about the air pollution and the noise of the site.
So noise during construction, there's a condition in it to ask for a construction management plan to be submitted and approved. So that would deal with all things like hours of operation, control of dust, and things like that. I think the good thing about this site, one of the good things is that there is standoff from, say, the people at Plantation Drive because of the woodland. There are people opposite, but it's more of an isolated site than some of the other ones we've dealt with. So a construction management plan would control, I think, those issues as part of the development.
My concern is, because there's going to be a lot of equipment in and out of there, there's going to be a lot of pollution, particularly in the air. So we need to be robust to make sure that, this management plan is efficient in what it's doing.
Okay, yeah, noted.
Right, I got Gwyn next on the list.
Hi. First point is I find it strange that the Gwent Wildlife Trust never got back there with any not normal. Well, when we went down on the site visit, there was plenty of wildlife around there, wasn't there? So I find that a bit strange,
And if we've consulted them, if people don't respond, we can't, there's no obligation for them to. They normally respond if they've got any issues to raise, but we just have to take that on face value, really.
The second point is the applicant has repeatedly refused to offer pre-consultation to resolve the issue as regards diverting the footpath. Why is that?
The applicant was concerned that if an application was made to divert the footpath, that it may delay the process, because if objections were received, it sometimes takes a long time to divert a footpath, so they didn't want to do it now. Our public right-of-way officer's advice was that she would give help up front and try and iron out any issues, but at the end of the day, we couldn't make the developer take the approach that we thought was the right approach, but we've got a requirement within the section 106 now for the applicant to either apply to extinguish or divert the existing public right of way, which would be as part of the development rather than during the application stage. So it isn't the best approach, but it's not bad enough for us to dig our heels in.
Thirdly, traffic. There's going to be an increase in traffic. You've got children crossing the road to go to the various schools. What's the plan in sight for that?
Thank you, Councillor. We mentioned earlier about the crossing facility that's going to be put north of the Turnpike roundabout, which is a crossing facility to take the children into the school. The crossing will be located actually where the path leads down into the school. As far as congestion is concerned, I didn't really have an issue with congestion at this particular site. It's not particularly congested in any event. If you recall, previously there was County Hall on this site, and although the traffic flows will be different now, you've got to try and build in that, well, there was something on the site before, there is something now, and the TA didn't really tell me that there was going to be a particular issue at this particular site, and I agree with that, to be honest. I mean, we always think that where you put development there will be congestion, but what we've got to think is that congestion so unbearable that it would lead you to have issues with a particular development at this particular area. What we're mostly likely to do is try and mitigate traffic issues, i.e. the best thing always to try and do from my viewpoint is to try and make it a bit safer for pedestrians. That's the main thing. You're always going to have traffic. It's always growing. It's going to continue to grow, but this didn't cause me give me a particular concern at this particular site. Thank you.
Yeah, the concern I got is not so much the traffic, is right away for school children. They got to cross that roundabout or the main road there. What's the plan for that? Is you going to put a zebra crossing in, or?
Well, the developer proposed a zebra crossing. My view was that it should be a signal control crossing, and that is something that we will negotiate throughout the Section 106 agreement. My preference is still for a signal control junction there, a signal controlled crossing point there.
Yeah, very good. Okay, thank you.
Right. Okay, Gwen? You satisfied? Right. Stuart is on the list again. Next.
Yes, I noticed that you talked to the developer about climate change mitigation. I wonder what that means in the context of this development, because I looked at the design you had for houses, and obviously it says support climate change responsive development through location, orientation, density, layout, built form, materials and landscaping. I saw a fairly standard looking design there, no evidence of things like solar panels, that sort of thing. What's the developer doing to mitigate that? Because obviously that's something we've declared climate change emergency as an authority, and we've done it in Wales. So I wonder what the developers are doing now. What this developer's doing, sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the first line of what you said.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Yeah, it's mentioned in here, and I wonder what they're doing, because obviously that's something committee's going to be planning committee's going to be asking now.
Yeah, I assume you're referring to policy S3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Page 35.
right, development proposal shall seek to mitigate the cause of and adapt to the.
Page S3 item.
Yeah. So it's saying that layouts and densities and landscaping can help towards climate change. Well, I guess what we could say is that there's quite a lot of green infrastructure retained on the site.
I think there's an awful lot of woodland already on the site, and one of the key considerations, as Rebecca said, was always to maintain all of that, so you don't have a net loss of ecology or green infrastructure. So with all of that, we've looked at the layout in terms of orientation. We've looked at getting as many trees as possible on the site. You've got the highway links, the sustainable traffic, the bus stops close to the site. This is close to the town centre as well. So all of that is to do with climate change, really.
What about the development of sustainable energy and stuff like that? Are they planning to put that stuff in as well?
Not that I'm aware of. We've not had that as part of this particular application, no.
We can't force that in any of our conditions, can we?
Absolutely.
We're not able to ask developers to do that, are we?
I think this is about trying to encourage developers to do it. I think things are changing slowly, but in terms of this application, it's all the infrastructure that we've got sorted. But in terms of individual designs, use of solar panels and whatnot, that would be for the developer to look at.
Thank you for that. No, I get in what you're saying. It's progress if we can get it in the infrastructure. I understand that.
Right, you okay now, Stuart? Right. Janet's next on the list.
Thanks, Jay. Just a quick question. Should there be buffers on the plots which will come against the boundary fences to stop the overgrowth? Obviously, we've all seen developers do things and they end up fly tipping all the rubbish, etc. Should we not encourage the developers to put these buffers on all these areas, please?
Yeah, I mean, there are some buffers going in the round simply because it's ancient woodland, so we need the buffer off the ancient woodland. What we did try to encourage through this development was the houses to be orientated to face the woodland rather than backing onto the woodland, and we tried really hard on that point. We've got along this eastern frontage here, you can see that the properties face onto the woodland, but sort of around this corner, they're all backing on all along here. We tried our best and failed on that point, sorry, so, yeah.
It's quite disappointing because at the end of the day it's an environmental issue. I think perhaps we should encourage the developers to reconsider doing something.
I think the officers have been in discussion for quite some time with this application, so I don't know whether they want to add anything to that.
But just wanted to add, the application's been in quite a long time. Lots of negotiation has gone ahead, lots of meetings, lots of amendments have already been made, but it comes to a point where you have to decide, we've gone as far as we can, is this scheme now acceptable or not as it stands? And I think when we look at this, from our point of view, it is acceptable. Disappointing that we can't push further, but I don't think this is a scheme that we can really say is unacceptable now at this stage.
And Richard, I'm sure you've done your very best.
John, thank you.
My question leads on to the encouraging developers section, I think. I see that whilst we are retaining a lot of existing trees, the trees that are being planted by the developers themselves are small and short-lived. I can't see it. I'm happy with that at all. It's going to look like a desert wasteland of concrete from what I know. I'm reading between the lines, but I'm just not happy with the longevity of the trees or the amount that's being planted.
I think you're looking at the landscape officer's comments in that, yeah. We've had some more discussion on from that, and some of the, because she was a bit concerned because there was a lot of ornamental trees going into the front gardens. We'd always prefer the trees to be in the street scene rather than in front gardens, but we failed to sort of achieve that. But what we have got is, instead of ornamental trees within front gardens now, sort of more native species that are going to have a longer life and be there for longer, hopefully, than sort of an ornamental cherry or something like that. So I think we've gone some way to addressing that, considered on from the landscape officer's comments.
Okay, John, you satisfied with that? Right. Are there any other questions? Or Jason?
Yeah, thank you. I'm drawn to the section on education. It's noted that the site will generate 42 primary school children and 23 secondary age pupils. Well, the site won't generate them, the parents will, but this is going to have an impact on the schools in the area, and that appears to be why they've made a payment. I'm wondering, as a committee, if we keep approving these houses, we're putting more and more pressure on the education system to find places that, due to the closures that we've undertaken as part of the 21st Century Schools programme, we simply don't have capacity for. So my question is, if this 351,000 isn't enough, which is what the report states, how much is actually needed, and what will that 351,000 be spent on?
If I just clarify, the payments in this respect are the 316,200 for the primary school, which would go to improving capacity in North Road School to accommodate those pupils that would go to the primary school. As you know, Crossy Comp is opening in the autumn, a new school, and that has got 1,200 pupils in it. The capacity. Now, the pupils from that development, I think, is 42. They would want to go to Crossy Comp, basically. But at the moment, there are a lot of out-of-catchment pupils within Crossy School, so over the next few years, those pupils will work out from the school, and then the capacity to accommodate the pupils from this development will be there. So, so the local authority have plans for this development within the Crossy School, albeit there's a surplus of pupils in the short term.
I think I saw in here, and I'm struggling to find it now, that the new capacity when the new school is open is lower than the current capacity.
It's down to 1,200, so that's been what all these calculations and discussions have been based on, that 1,200. But over the next few years, that capacity then will be, as out of catchment children work their way out of the school, there'll be increased space for the pupils from the development.
The head of development and planning would like to come in with this one. Yes.
I just wondered, because it's a complicated thing, and we've been talking to education extensively about this. The actual site is allocated for this development, as you know, and it has been since 2013, and education were well aware of all those proposals. So they've set up their programme and strategy to make sure that when these developments come online, there is capacity available. So the school that they've chosen there has got the capacity. The only issue at the moment is timing, because if this development comes online slightly earlier than expected, then it'll be a few years before the capacity will actually be realised. So what education is saying is they don't want to spend any money on short-term capacity issues, because in a very short period it won't be a problem anyway. So we are happy that they've got a strategy that will sort out the secondary school children, and that's why we're not asking for that amount in this particular agreement. So we're okay with that, and so are education. I can't explain all the number crunching to you, but they've been fully involved in the process.
I think it's something we just need to be aware of, not only for this development, but certainly future developments as well. We've got less of capacity now. We right-sized the school system based on a reduced capacity, and now we're saying we're going to keep developing new properties and introducing new children, which is going to create additional pressure. So I think perhaps a wider strategy is something we need to think about.
I think you're absolutely right, and as you know, we're embarking on a new LDP at the moment. We're already looking at candidate sites, and education will be fully involved in that process to make sure longer term the strategy is there to make sure they're accommodated, yes.
Right, any more questions, comments? Anybody ready to make a proposal? Stuart? Yes, what?
Sorry, I'll propose it, okay?
I'll second it, yeah.
You are proposing the officer's recommendation.
Yes.
It's looking at what is that? Condition. There's 25 conditions on it and 8 informatives, and the Section 106 agreement. Yes. So you're proposing that, and it's been seconded. Right. Those for the application? 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That looks that. No. Anyone against? Any abstentions? No. That was unanimous. So that concludes our meeting today. Thank you all for attending, committee and officers, and I close the meeting. Thank you.